When you think of earthquakes in America, what states do you think of? California? Alaska? You probably didn't think of Maine or Vermont or Massachusetts. Well, guess what? Earthquakes do happen right here in New England. Even before the Pilgrims arrived, Native Americans had experienced earthquakes and told settlers about them. In 1638, the Pilgrims experienced their first earthquake. In the fall and winter of 1727, several earthquakes shook Newburyport, Massachusetts. Stephen Jakes, who was a church leader, wrote about what it was like.
On the 29th day of October, there was a terrible earthquake. It came with a dreadful roaring as if it were thunder, and then it pounced like great guns 2 or 3 times, close one after another. It shook down bricks from the tops of many chimneys. All that was about the house trembled. Beds shook. Some cellar walls fell partly down.
On November 18, 1755, another large earthquake shook Boston at 4 o'clock in the morning. A newspaper reporter named John Hyde wrote down exactly how it felt to him being woken up from a sound sleep.
By the time I had gotten about halfway across the room, the shaking was a little abated, so that I imagined the height of the shock was past. But this thought no sooner came into my mind than I found how much I was mistaken for. Instantly the shock came on with redoubled violence and noise, the windows, the doors, the chairs being prodigiously agitated, and indeed the whole house rocking and creaking to such a degree that I concluded it soon must fall.
60 miles away from Boston, in Greenland, New Hampshire, the earthquake cracked the wall of the Weeks house. This is something you can see for yourself today. Altogether, there have been more than 1,000 earthquakes around here since people began counting in 1568. What causes earthquakes? That's an interesting question. People everywhere have had a lot of theories, but scientists today believe earthquakes can be explained by something called plate tectonics. The crust of the Earth is actually made up of about a dozen floating plates. Millions of years ago, they were all joined in a single landmass called Pangaea. But they have slowly moved away from each other at about the same rate our fingernails grow, a couple of centimeters a year. Scientists think that heat energy from the Earth's mantle might be what pushes the plates around on the surface of the planet. Places like California, where the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate meet, have a lot of earthquakes.
Most of the world's earthquakes occur at the boundaries between plates, where 2 plates are rubbing together. For instance, the plates might be rubbing horizontally, one plate might be sliding under another, 2 plates might be spreading away. Those are called interplate earthquakes.
Since California is on the edge of its plate, it has a lot of earthquakes. Here, in New England, we're in the middle of the North American Plate. The edge is way out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Our earthquakes are called intraplate earthquakes. What causes them is not really known for sure, but it might be old faults under the Appalachian Mountains that are still moving around. Earthquakes don't happen nearly as often here in New England as they do in California, so scientists call New England a moderate earthquake zone. However, a New England earthquake can reach much further than one of the same size in California. All of the granite rock under New England transmits the shock waves of an earthquake very well. That's why the 1755 earthquake of Cape Ann, Massachusetts, was felt way down in Annapolis, Maryland, and also by sailors in a ship 200 kilometers away in the Atlantic Ocean. And even though New England is a moderate earthquake zone, an earthquake here can affect many more people, because in New England, more people live in a much smaller area than in California. So chances are, we'll all experience an earthquake sometime in our lives here in New England. It's impossible to predict exactly when an earthquake will happen, maybe this year, maybe 15 years from now. We just can't know for sure, but when it does happen, there are things we can do to be safe.
If you're inside your house and an earthquake occurs, by far the best thing to do is to get either under a sturdy piece of furniture, a table, a desk. Getting under your bed is actually a good thing to do, where objects cannot fall on you and hurt you.
Also, be sure to stand away and turn away from windows, because they might break and hit you with broken glass. If you're outside, make sure you stand away from buildings, electric lines, and trees. Get off bridges and get out from underpasses quickly. An earthquake doesn't last long, just a few seconds, but when it's over, be careful. There might be broken glass, fallen electrical lines, and damaged buildings that could be dangerous to be in or around. Turn on your radio and listen for instructions. And don't use a telephone unless you have a real emergency. The phone lines need to be clear for the police, the fire, and rescue departments. An important thing to remember about earthquakes is that they are natural. When you feel one, you know that the earth is really moving under your feet, and that you will be an eyewitness to something really big and really interesting. So while you are safely waiting for the shaking to stop, think of what an earthquake tells you. It's telling you that the planet Earth is full of secrets and surprises, and that we still have an awful lot to learn about what goes on here. An earthquake is absolute proof of that.